Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. This is Tech Leaders Unplugged with our first episode for season two. It is January, and we have as our guest Johan Moore of Green Ant Solutions. And our topic of the day is called Pioneering New Tech Narratives. And so, welcome everybody. Welcome, Johan. Appreciate your time today and sharing a little bit of your experience with our Tech Leaders Unplugged audience. Tell me a little bit about yourself, Green Ant. I know it's a new company, so tell us where you're at and what kind of areas you typically support, and then we can just get into the show and talk a little bit about tech.
No problem. First, I'd like to thank you, Wade and Carlos, for inviting me to the program. I apologize about my voice. I feel like I'm coming down with something, so I hope I'm clear enough to everybody who's listening. So with regards to, Green Ant Technologies, it's a company that I founded about 2 years ago. Well, actually about 4 years ago, but nothing really too much came of it. But within the last couple of years is when I decided to say, hey, look, you know what? I'd like to really make this something. And then along with one of my co-founders, Renee Castillo, we decided to kind of take this a little bit further. And for Green Ant Solution, we offer several services. We're basically a web development shop, but primarily is that we have developed our own technology, one called Element.js and JSphere. Element.js is a front-end technology, and JSphere is a web application server. And I know that general question that people might have is why, especially for JavaScript, right? There's so many frameworks, so many different utilities and libraries out there. Why would you do another one? And I feel it comes into really it's all about using some of the tech that's out there and feeling that I don't think it's offering the right abstraction. It's not to say that it's wrong in a way, but I think everybody has their way in which they'd like to use a tool, right? I think having a lot of these things just goes to show you the diversity in people in terms of how they like to work with technology or use it to develop products, right? So I'm not one that kind of looks and thinks, oh wow, there's all these technologies out there, there's something wrong with the ecosystem. No, I actually encourage it. I like the innovation. I like people looking and challenging the status quo and think, okay, you know what, maybe I can do something better. And we leave it up to the market to kind of determine whether that is better or not, right? But again, I like that. And so this is what we decided to do. And I felt that if it is that you do want to be innovative, if you do want to kind of create your own technology because you think you have a different approach or a better approach, you really need to kind of start your own company to do that, right? It's hard to kind of do that with inside of, let's say you're working for another software development shop and you have a fantastic idea. It's hard to kind of say, okay, let's develop this, right? This is what's going to help. Rightfully so, the company's probably going to say, well, you know what? We can't because the focus is on the product, right? And that's very much understandable. And so, which leads me to, I guess, some foundational beliefs that I have when it comes to technology and when it comes to product. And I think I'd like to probably, state these foundational beliefs because I think it's a predicate to a lot of the views that I have. And the first one is that your end users care absolutely nothing about the technology that is used to develop or deliver your product, right? And I really want to emphasize that your end users care absolutely nothing about the technology that's used to deliver or used to develop or deliver your product. And what I mean by that is that, let's say, for example, a mobile app that we might have on our phone, we don't really care if it is developed using Flutter. We don't care if it's developed using Ionic. We don't care if it's developed using React Native. What we care about, and what the end user cares about, is one, does it work? Can they derive utility from it? And how does it make it feel? How does it make them feel as they're using your product? And if we were to kind of qualify that in, I guess, more fancy terms, it's really what your end user cares about is the quality of service, the quality of value, and the quality of sentiment, right? And we can even boil this down even further to just the quality of the experience, right? That's what your end users kind of care about. And I think when it comes to the technology side of it, the only people that really care about that is the developers themselves, right? And one of the things when it comes to innovation, and this is what Green Ant is all about, when it comes to innovation, what we feel we have to do in order to innovate at Green Ant, we have to be able to step outside the echo chamber, or the technology echo chamber that tells you, well, this is what everybody else is using, so this is what you must do, right? Because as long as you operate within inside of the status quo, that kind to me inhibits you from innovating, right? So if we talk about innovation, we talk about companies innovating, I think it's imperative to be able to step outside of that echo chamber, to be able to then look at the status quo and challenge what's there, and see that at times, to me, I have the statement that when the status quo becomes disruptive, it's time to disrupt the status quo. It's time to kind of look at new ways of kind of doing things, right? And so that's the general philosophy, I guess, behind, the Green Ant team. We're always wanting to challenge the status quo, not to kind of be, we don't like what's going on. We love what everybody's done at this point, but we just want to make sure that we can innovate and probably potentially do better. And so we feel with our product JSphere and Element.js, I think we're tackling that, right? And we've been working this for about a couple of years, and I am hesitant to release it, not because I don't think it's quality. We do have some of our clients who are using it for us, but it's because we're constantly testing it. We want to make sure that these products, once they go live, can actually benefit our targeted end users.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, you're following the customer experience lean startup methodologies where you did build for a while before you even tried it on the market, try it on yourself, and then a lot of testing and adjustments, before you actually, like you said, put it out there in the market and see how it does. So, there's very, very, it is kind of a new trend. You're kind of a product enabled service provider. And so, this is the same kind of thing we do over here at Logigear. And with the test automation tools, the open source ones, Selenium, Playwright, all those, we build a framework on top of them to expedite the work that we do. And we just license that out, for $1 for 99 years. So doesn't become an inhibitor to like if the service should end, then all of a sudden the technology's got to be paid, So it's really we do the same thing over here, and find that it makes us more efficient as well. So great idea. Green Ant, of course, I'm sure a lot of people say, where did that come from? I know it's on the website. Maybe just a little snippet on what made you choose the Green Ant for your company.
The name actually came from a very close and good friend of mine, Sharif Chandler. He was along with Weston Dyer, a couple of individuals that we were looking to start Green Ant with, and he actually had recommended the name. And the name Green Ant, it's because the green ant, I think native to Australia, out of all the ant species, they actually build their nests in trees, wherever all the other ants build it in the ground. So it's kind of like, again, that difference, like you're doing something different from what the status quo actually is. And just the way, because they're building it in the trees and the way they weave the leaves together to kind of form, their home, I felt that that's what Green Ants kind of symbolizes, right? We are going to be high above everybody else. We're thinking differently. We're looking at the broader picture, and the way we create our applications is with the same type of intricacy that these particular creatures do themselves, right? So that's where that came from.
Great analogy there for that. So I have a handful of questions. If you'd like to jump in, we can jump into those and then just kind of flow on that. So, I went into your website and looked at your mission statement, and something that stood out says, we recognize that delivering successful digital solutions goes beyond meeting deadlines and budgets. It revolves around providing the right digital experience, kind of like what we're talking about, customer experience centric. Failing to do so often requires costly rework, which results in prolonged time to adoption, higher cost of ownership, and more importantly, hinders the delivery of business value. So, within the quality assurance world, cost of ownership and rework is something that's often a challenge. And like you said, you've iterated on your base product quite a few times, adding functionality, testing, adding. So can you discuss the role of testing that, both manual and automated took in your product development, as well as maybe some of the services that you do to help, improve the release times, and overall reduce bugs and the experience for the customer.
Okay, so I think when it comes to testing, the general purpose of testing, I think, is to ensure the continued delivery of that quality experience, right? That's why we test, and that's general. Like, I mean, for example, you might have your customer service team that has to also test their, how fast they respond to customer inquiries, how fast can they resolve issues. So you're testing their process, right? Because you want to make sure that you're continuing to deliver that experience that your clients or customers, are accustomed to. So I think that the purpose of testing is to ensure the continuous quality delivery of quality, right? Or quality experience. Now, we have, all sorts of testing. If you're going to categorize them, we have your manual test and, your automated testing. And I think when we come to testing, it all depends on where you are in your product life cycle, right? Where you are in terms of the maturity of your company or organization. And one of the things that I feel is that in the earlier stages, we're looking at manual testing, and manual testing tries to not only kind of test the functionality and making sure that everything is correct, but why manual testing, I feel, always kind of has to be there and present, no matter how much you're automating your technology, is that with the manual testing, you're having the human experience, you're having a human being using your application, using your product, so that you can capture, again, the quality of the sentiments, right? Like how they feel using the system. Because, I've worked for companies where, the QA team would actually come back and say, I don't think this is the right user experience or user interface for this. It seems very cumbersome and so forth. And so you have to value that kind of feedback. And I feel that that's something that automated testing can't really tell you, because automated testing depends on the work that the manual are doing, and then you're just trying to automate it to expedite, the actual testing process, right? But there's always going to be a need for manual testers. With let's say, for example, now, automated testing, is that automated testing is very important, but again, it depends, again, where you are in the life cycle of your product. And I feel that in the earlier stages, I don't feel that software development companies should really focus on automated testing. And so one of the things that happen, I think, in software development is that you hear all these terminologies. You're like, look, we should do this testing, do that testing. And then even in the earlier stages of a product development, you have your development team probably focusing on trying to establish automating testing. But the whole point is that your product is in a state of flux at that time. So it's constantly changing. So to even try to implement automated testing early in that stage, you're doing yourself a disservice, because I don't feel that you're, optimizing your resource use, right? Your manual testers could take care of that. They'll change the scripts if they have to. They'll test things. And I feel when it comes to automated testing, that's something should probably happen further along the process, when your product starts to solidify, a little bit. And what those bring, once we do have the automated testing, you're right, is that it does help to expedite the delivery of, features that you might have, right? And that's very important. But more importantly is that it's, when it comes to testing and delivery, it's really about your delivery cadence, right? So one of the things is that even if you're testing and your feature, let's say, passes and everything is good, it doesn't necessarily mean that that feature is ready for delivery. It doesn't mean all of a sudden we put it to the customer, right? What we want to do is include that within our delivery cadence, and your delivery cadence, incorporates your sprints. And the delivery cadence is meant to deliver meaningful value, incremental value to your end users at that time you're going to do your release. So if, for example, the testing pass, you might just want to put it aside and then go on and move on to something else, and then accumulate a bunch of features and then release them all together. So I'm not sure if I've answered it correctly, but feel free to to jump in. But again, when it comes to the testing and the importance of testing, I really feel, again, it's just a matter of when is the right time to do and implement certain types of testing, right? You wouldn't start, let's say, doing performance testings again earlier in the cycle. because you have to have a product. You have to know what you're doing. You have to understand how many users you probably would have on this particular product before you do any type of load and performance testing. So it just really just depends on where you are in the product life cycle, where you are in your company, if you have the resources to do that. And I think the narrative that even if it's not a narrative, something I really like, developers to know is that we just don't start implementing things because we hear that this is what other companies are doing. We really just have to understand where we are and what's necessary to be done at that particular time. And in most cases, I feel like within the first year of a software development company, you're probably going to do a lot of manual testing, and there's benefit to that, like I said, just simply because you're going to be able to test the functionality, but you're also going to be able to test the experience too as well, which is very important.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% that the automation is really to be testing features that are stable, which is kind of, counterintuitive. Why am I testing things that are stable? Well, you're testing them because, software is very interconnected. And so you may be adding new features in another area, and you could break core functionality. And so, we do probably 60% of our work is manual testing for the points you exactly made. When the application's in really early and a lot of flux, you want to have a lot of manual testers on it because it's so changing so much. And then as the product matures, you then start to build up your regression suite against the core applications that absolutely have to work in every release. And so you basically do it in chunks of, and then most of the time, 80-85% is the max coverage you even want. You never even want to go to 100% because of the flexibility, the new features, all of that stuff. A lot of times it doesn't make sense to even put automated testing.
Yeah, and this is one of the things where, if we're talking about changing narratives, what I really would like to just emphasize to your listeners, to anybody who's working in a startup and so forth, is that the focus can't be technology and just using technology for the sake of using technology. We can't hear that, oh, they say that we should be testing, so let's start looking at our, what testing software we're going to use. Let's start, automating things, just simply because, again, you have limited resources, and the company isn't in a position to now hire automated testers or people who now understand this aspect of it, because there might be some coding involved. And so if you're going to start to implement that while you're not ready for it, then you're going to be using your current resources to then try to get that done, which takes away from the manual testing and the testing of the product that needs to be done. And then now you're just really just trying to study about how to implement something that you might not need along the line. And I think this kind of at times really does an injustice to the delivery of, or the delivery of your end product, right? Because we're just focusing too much on the technology aspect of it, as opposed to the product side of,
Excellent. Got another question, if you're good for that.
Yeah.
How do you approach so with all the talk about artificial intelligence, machine learning, and all those kind of things, there's a big scramble in most software companies to figure out how to apply this, this stuff to your products to make them more feature rich in this area. So, how do you approach choosing different aspects of AI and machine learning to apply them particularly to your SaaS product, to enhance the functionality and the user experience?
Yeah, yeah, the AI topic is a pretty interesting one. Just share a little bit of a story, is that I remember, working for a company, and the owner of the CEO of the company came into me and said, like, why are we not, implementing AI? It's kind of like the new thing that's kind of out there, why are we kind of behind, right? And to be honest, at that time, I was hearing about AI, but I didn't know much about it, right? But I thought it was just an interesting take that as soon as we kind of hear something, then that means we must apply it or implement it, because that's what it seems like a lot of companies are doing. And then after that, I had a discussion with another, the CTO of the company. And I, was honest with him and say, I, don't know much about AI. How are we going to, start implementing this if I don't know much about it? I don't think my team knows much about it. And the response was a very interesting one. I mean, I'm not criticizing any of these individuals whatsoever. I'm more just trying to outline, what this is about. But the response was, it's okay. We have if statements and else statements. That's considered AI. So just say we've implemented it, right? And because there's some decision logic. And really now what it becomes is just a marketing type of thing, right? Where again, from the end user's perspective, they don't care anything about the technology. Again, it's about, are they deriving utility? Are they having a good experience? You know, is the quality of service good? And you can slap AI on in that, and all it does is makes them feel like, hey, you know what, this project is progressing. But the end user themselves might not even understand if AI was implemented or not, right? So now if we're talking about implementing AI, like actually truly implementing AI, and I had the good fortune of being hired as head of engineering for a company, Liddy AI, that dealt with using machine learning and AI technology to basically calculate the a health score for individuals to help them out with insurance, right? So basically what they did is they'd have all this data that they trained train on, and basically they'd have access to individuals' health records, and they will take those health records, put them into their AI models, and it'll come back and give a score. And the insurance company now could they could cater the premiums towards the score that's being provided, right? And so I learned what AI actually is and what it's about and what is involved. And the thing is with it is that there's two things now when we're talking about implementing AI. Are we going to be an AI company where, sorry, are we going to be an AI company where it is that we are going to invest in what's required to train machines because we require that training in order to implement AI into our systems? Or are we just going to use APIs of existing services that are out there, right? And the question we have to ask ourselves is, the existing services that are out there, do we have a need for them inside of our application? And for the most part, the answer is really no for most applications. Some applications might, and it's amazing if there's an API that allows us to then augment our current product with AI. But if there isn't, then it's hard to implement it. And if you don't have a use case, like Liddy AI had a use case, if you don't have a use case to build your company around AI, where we're training these models and getting all this data, which is very expensive and laborious and tedious and whatever the case may be, then when it comes to innovation with regards to AI, I think at this particular stage, it's really just something that's kind of just said and stated, as opposed to, okay, this is something that we can actually now start to implement. Now with ChatGPT coming out, that's a lot, is very useful. Just simply because now we could use AI to kind of augment our application. Like for example, Microsoft with their Copilot for GitHub, right? You're using AI to now help somebody do their work. We might use AI in our product to kind of help individuals maybe streamline their processes by data that we're collecting, and we're able to feed into maybe certain models that it is that we have.
I agree with you 100%. I think as time progresses, we've had all kinds of technology that's come along in the last 20 years that had a lot of hype wrapped around it and just never quite, not to blame the technology. It was just really, how do we wrap our brain as humans around it? And, you're talking about, the decision makers at the top have to appreciate what the technology has and then decide, is it something that the end user is even going to want? Because as the end users are getting smart about AI and machine learning, and if you're selling that and it does not deliver that, it's going to actually backfire on you. So exactly. I think people have to be very careful about, just don't jump on the bandwagon and throw AI in there for the sake of AI. Make sure there's a value prop for that specifically, and then, like you said, AI enabled. Let the value, if I'm an AI developer, let the value of applying AI to me to make myself even more efficient and effective be the driver, instead of just say, I'm using AI to help me. And it has to be loved and desired, I think to really be appreciated. So just like anything else. So, yep. I got one more question, if you're okay. Like you said earlier, you worked on this idea for about 4 years, and then you started formally, set up the company a couple of years ago. Tell me a little bit about that journey. A lot of our viewers are, middle management and wanting to get into the C-suite. Tell me a little bit about what drove you to finally, take the leap, as they say,
Yeah.
to take on entrepreneurialism. And
Yeah.
do you have any good pointers for the viewers?
I feel it came from a discussion I had with a mentor of mine who is younger than me, but managed to establish a very successful software company that he had managed to sell. And we were just talking one time, and as a matter of fact, he was a reference for me getting the job at Lydia as head of engineering, right? And at Lydia, it was probably just about, I think I was there for about 6 months, 7 months. And then, got another job at another really nice company. Sorry, I Restify, and the people there, worked with them, and then just stayed there for a short stint too as well. But at the end of that, we were just talking, and he goes, Johan, you're no longer employable, right? And what he meant by that, is not my skill sets weren't there, and no one's going to hire me. He just said that you're past trying to help other companies succeed. I feel that I had a pretty good track record of helping companies. Back in 2000, I developed my own kind of language framework for web development when it is that they had ASP and Cold Fusion back at that time. And a company, ISI, they had adopted it, became highly successful, 17th fastest growing company in Canada at one point. They branched off into 2 companies, and of us, I think as late as 2018, I think it was, they were still using that technology for their products, right? They were trying to obviously transition out of it to newer tech, which by all means I accept and recommend. And then in 2014, hired for another company, director of development, and they were a consulting company, and it was just one individual who was a developer, and I was hired to kind of help them turn them from a consultant to a software company. Within 4 years period of time, we managed to be bought out, and grew the team to about 27. So I felt like very confident in my ability to understand tech, develop tech to help companies kind of succeed. And so what I found in the later stages was just that I would desire to really try to take companies to a different place, but it's sometimes hard when they're already at a certain place that maybe they feel comfortable with, or they have a pace that they'd like to go to. And then I just realized, like, look, you know what? It's time that I have to do it for myself, right? It's time that I have to take that leap. And it's nerve-wracking. It is. And, but I have this expression that, it requires courage, as we kind of talked about before. And when it comes to courage, courage is not action in the absence of fear. Courage is action in the presence of fear. You have to feel a certain amount of fear to be able to have courage to do something. And once it is that you kind of now master that courage, once you feel comfortable in uncertainty, because another sound advice that I received from one of the ex-CEOs of Xerox was that you have to learn to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations. And I think that that's what I'm trying to now start to master, right? So I'm in some very uncomfortable situations, but I feel comfortable with it, right? And so I think that's what's required. I think that's where now in the stage of my life that I'm at, and why I felt that this was the right opportunity. And the thing is that when I was laid off from my last job, you always feel kind of, oh, I got laid off. You feel bad, but then it's like, no, that's an opportunity. And you have to be able to recognize opportunities. And just something kind of opened up in me and said, this is the time. I'm ready now. Whatever the challenge is, I'm ready to deal with it and handle it. And I'm just surrounded by some really terrific people, close friends, family, who 100% supported me in what I was doing, whether it was moral support or financial support. So that's also a factor that's there. But anyways, I'm happy with this journey. It allowed me now to spend time developing the technologies. And like I said, hopefully we can release those technologies very soon, because they are different. They are doing things differently. But from the tests that we've been doing so far, the clients that we've kind of developed applications for, we're seeing that it's working. And so we're excited about that.
Sounds great. Now, so we're at the top of the show, and wanted to first of all thank you for coming on the show, sharing your knowledge and experience with us. Is there anything else you'd like to quickly share before we kind of wrap up?
I think I'd like to just share maybe just a diagram kind of talking about my thoughts and or sure highlighting my thoughts with regards to software development and what's required.
Sure. Perfect.
And so just give me one moment here. Is this visible?
Not yet. I think they're flipping the switches to get it to show. Not sharing yet. Okay. Did you want to click that center button again?
Sure, no problem. Okay.
There we go. Now I can see it.
Okay, this diagram here kind of represents, I guess, the culmination of my experience working with software companies. And it's something where we here at Green Ant Technologies are really trying to take in, internalize, because I really feel that this is what will help us, proceed. And so one of the things that I always kind of like to look at is not about sprints. It's not about agile. It's not about any specific thing with regards to the, these terminologies that are kind of used or, methodologies for doing things. What it is that really what we're trying to do, and I think what leadership has to do, is establish a strong delivery cadence. And the characteristics of a strong delivery cadence is it has to be iterative, optimized, and sustainable. And by being iterative, what we're really saying is that it has to be able to deliver incremental value. It has to be optimized, making best use of resources, basically applying the right people to the right work at the right time, and sustainable. It has to be something that we can maintain over a long period of time. And so that's the objective, I feel, as for anybody in our audience who's listening, who is in leadership. I think our goal is always to establish the right delivery cadence. And the things that now can impact our delivery cadence are our customers, compliance, regulatory compliance, technology, and governance. Our customers, for example, what we were just talking about before, customers wanting AI, right? And if we are not if we don't know about AI, we might feel this pressure that we have to implement it, and all of a sudden we're changing up our whole game plan, trying to implement this, and then therefore potentially affecting our delivery cadence. Compliance is not a one. Regulatory compliance. All of a sudden something new might come in. Years ago was GDPR and the protection of people's information. Then we had to kind of switch up how it is that we were doing things, what we had to provide to our end users, and they had to agree on, and so forth. That could affect our delivery cadence. Then there's governance. Governance is really about the policies, procedures, and practices of your company. They can affect it, right? If you don't govern the company correctly, then you can impede the delivery cadence. A lot of times governance really has to do with the culture and the moods of your employees. And if they're not happy, this can affect the delivery cadence. And technology could affect it. Again, using AI, it could be that there's a newer technology that is out there, and your development team is putting pressure to say, let's use this because this is the way everybody's doing it, right? This can affect your delivery cadence, but that's fine because these things will always exist. In order to counteract that, I feel that companies have to really focus on agility and continuous innovation. Right? There are going to be times when we might have to pivot, we might have to change, and that's okay, but we have to establish a culture of agility and continuous innovation. And for us to be able to do that, we have to have these certain qualities within people, process, and product. And when it comes to people, we really have to encourage curiosity, courage, compassion, communication, and community. And when it comes to process, we have to make sure our processes are very transparent, traceable, trackable. We have to care about the tooling that we're using, and most importantly, teamwork, right? Everybody has to believe in the process. And then when it comes to the product development and engineering, we have to make sure that we're taking this thing through a discover, design, define, develop, deliver type of process, right? To assure the delivery of a quality product. And if I was just going to sum up software development, sum up running a software company, this would be it. And I remember being in a couple of interviews, just like last year, a couple of years ago, where I presented this to when I was being interviewed by CEOs of two particular companies. They'd actually asked me, said, "Can we use this?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." Right. I didn't end up getting hired, right? But it's information that I'm willing to share, because I think it's important for people to have a mental model. You have to be able to kind of see this from a 1,000 feet kind of view. And if I was going to do that, this is what this would look like for me. And this is what like I said, I've used in, not formalized in this particular type of way, but in my 25 years of software development and working in these companies, this is what I realized I had inside of my head. And then I just wanted to kind of put that down now on paper, and more than willing to share it with anybody.
Great. Yeah. So the great model, by the way. 30 years of experience myself, all of that kind of aligned with my thinking. So I think the viewers out there, reach out to Johan, get a copy of that thing. You could probably build a whole blog site around that, for real. I mean, I can imagine, just seeing that as a mental model. Pictures 1,000 words. That picture's worth 10,000 words, really.
Exactly. And just one last thing. Sorry, just one last thing. And anybody who is interested in the tech that we're developing, please feel to reach out to us through our website, or my email is there. Reach out personally, and we're more than willing to demo our product for anybody.
Great. So the next show we have, if we're wrapping here, we have a show next week with Michael Frendo, CTO of Proofpoint, security company. It's on January 31st. Proofpoint, a little bit about them. Their motto is Proofpoint protects people and data and brands against advanced threats and compliance risks, which is a concern today in everything we build. And would love to have you on the visit next week and listen to what Michael has to share about the security space. So again, Johan, appreciate your time.
Thank you guys for having me.
I think we had some good topic areas for folks to do takeaways. And folks, reach out to Johan and see what he's got over there at Green End.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.